We have 2 days until the NBA draft, so it is time to do a video mock draft here on the TWSN YouTube channel. I'm Will Locklin, host of the On the Ball Show here, joined alongside one of my co-hosts for the On the Ball Show, which is live Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pranav, Sriraman. Pranav, how are you doing? Are you ready to do a mock draft?
I'm doing great. It's draft season, the best time of the year. Sometimes, who knows? But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to go.
Yeah, when your team, Pranav, your team has the second overall pick, it is a really good season. My team
Mhm.
is drafting at 10, so, top 10 picks,
And
it's an
12 for
enjoyable
me.
time.
Yeah.
Right, and 12, yeah, Thunder are loaded with draft picks, for sure. So let's get started here on this mock draft. Pranav, I believe you said you wanted to do, or I will do the odds and you would do the evens.
Yeah.
So that's how we'll start off.
And a disclaimer for everyone, these are picks that we would make if we were
Yeah.
in the draft room. This isn't what we predict will happen. This is what we would make if we were in the position to pick these players.
Yeah. And if you want to see drafts for TWSN that I've done and Pranav on what we project will happen, you can go to the TWSN website and we have articles on that kind of stuff. But like Pranav said, this is what we would do if we were GM. So without further ado, let's get it started here. The Orlando Magic, I'll be picking for them. And I'm going to go with Chet Holmgren at number 1 to the Magic because I believe he's the 1A prospect, I guess, in this class. I've kind of gone back and forth with him and Paolo, and it's pretty close. Like, beginning of the year, I had Paolo Banchero as my number 1 pick or number 1 prospect. But then mid-year, I kind of flipped to Chet, and now I kind of view it as like 1A, 1B. And so I think Chet has a slight edge, and so, best player available, obviously, at number 1. And that's Chet Holmgren for me. I think his combination of generational rim protection on defense plus just really unique offensive skill set. You just don't see too many guys who are like well over 7 feet, amazing defensive instincts and rim protection skills like Chet, and who also will probably be, a really good 3-point shooter in the NBA. It's just a lot of versatility on offense, plus providing like the most valuable defensive trait in guarding the paint at a high level. So it just makes a ton of sense. I think he fits and forms. I mean, like the second best defensive front court, second best young defensive front court behind, I guess, Mobley and Allen, with Wendell Carter and Chet. I think that's amazing, and I think their skill sets kind of complement what else Orlando has on the board on the offensive end. So Pranav, second overall pick, you have the pick for your Thunder. So who are you gonna pick?
So I wrote an article that's up on the TWSN website if you want to go check it out right now. Talking about the outlook the Oklahoma City Thunder should have in the draft. To me, like Will said, this is a 2-player draft at the top where the tier 1 is Chet Holmgren and Paolo Banchero, and the decision is going to be made for the Thunder if the Magic decide to take Chet. In real life, I think that they're going to take Jabari Smith Jr., but since Will took Chet Holmgren at the number 1 pick for the Orlando Magic, I have the Thunder taking Paolo Banchero at number 2. Paulo is a dynamic offensive creator, probably the best scorer this class has to offer. He's not, as of right now, he's not an elite distance shooter. I mean, he shot 33.8% from 3 this season at Duke. He shot 72.8% at the line, but the indicators are there that he could develop a nice jump shot throughout his NBA career. I mean, he's a really good mid-range shooter, a mid-range assassin, and he has a really nice fluid touch. And the best part about Paulo's game is how quickly and how easily he gets to the rim. He's 6'10", 250, and at that size, he's able to barrel to the rim, and he forces multiple defenders to come to have to help on him. And he's such a great advantage creator to the point where he makes quick reads. He processes what the defense is going to do before he even gets to his spots, and I think that's going to be insane next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander if the Thunder have 2 great advantage creators who could create their own shot at any given point, routinely make their shots, and also set up everyone else around them. So yeah, that would be my pick. The Thunder have had the league's worst offense for the past 2 seasons, and having a guy like Paulo who could play in minutes with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a guy who is willing to be an off-ball cutter, and then in minutes without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander running the offense as an engine, I think that could be great for Oklahoma City. And so Paolo Banchero is the pick at number 2.
Yeah, that's a fantastic pick, and it was a really tough decision with 1 and 2. It could really go either way, and I think, like, we have it going this way, but honestly, like, if I decided on Paulo, Chet to the Thunder, it could certainly happen in real life, and it's like a great pick either way.
Like
So
I said, you're not losing in any
here.
scenario.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, no, there's 2 big wins, I would say. All right, so third overall, Houston Rockets. I'm not going to go, with the conventional pick. I'm actually going to take Jaden Ivey to the Houston Rockets at number 3 because, again, this is what would we do mock draft? And for me personally, I have Jaden Ivey, maybe not like head and shoulders above Jabari Smith Jr., but like he's, I guess, I'd honestly say they're probably on the same tier. It's just right now I kind of prefer Jaden Ivey. And I kind of also dismiss the thoughts of like a backcourt of him and Jalen Green couldn't work. Now, I know it's a little bit weird since they obviously have Kevin Porter Jr. who's kind of playing their point guard, but personally, again, I'm not really a too big believer. Then again, if they had the chance to draft Ivy, they're probably not going to take it at 3. So again, this probably won't happen, but if they were, I think this would be a really good option because, I mean, like Jaden Ivey and Jalen Green could literally be that. Their potential could literally be the most athletic backcourt in, I would say, NBA history. Yeah, they literally have the potential to be like the most athletic backcourt, certainly the most athletic young backcourt right away. But like literally, they could literally make NBA history in that, and just in terms of their raw athleticism. And again, athleticism is not necessarily doesn't lead to production all the time. So with these guys drafting inside the top 3, both of them, it's going to happen. So I would love this pick. Now, again, neither of them are like true, I guess, like point. Like Jaden Ivey is honestly more of like a 2 guard. He's not really a big time outside creator like most shooting guards in the NBA today are. But that's kind of his more natural role. At least that's how he played it in Purdue. Now, I am interested to see more reps he can get as a lead ball handler because I think that could honestly work. So I would say Jaden Ivey and Jalen Green, they can kind of share primary ball handling responsibilities while also just being like just such diverse and athletic creators. Jaden Ivey, obviously, with his downhill rim pressure, and then Jalen Green provides a ton of rim pressure too. I mean, not just such an athletic backcourt, but like the rim pressure these guys can both create. And again, they're not both like great passers, but I think they're good enough to where they can develop and take advantage of all the advantages they're going to have on offense. So Jaden Ivey to the Houston Rockets would be big time. Don't really see it happening in real life, but man, I would. This would be pretty awesome if it actually happened. So, Pranav, you got the Kings.
Yeah, at the 4th overall pick, I have the Sacramento Kings selecting Jabari Smith Jr. So me personally, I'm not the highest on Jabari Smith Jr. Many NBA scouts, insiders, and a lot of people in the draft community have him as the best prospect in this draft. To me, I don't really see that. I have him as my prospect number 4 or 5, but I think at this selection, you're getting great value if you're the Sacramento Kings picking at 4. Jabari Smith Jr. is probably the most switchable defender in this draft. He's really light on his feet. Maybe there's some concerns with his how big he is when it comes to screen navigation, but at the point of attack, he is an absolutely tremendous defender, and he's really switchable and can fit into multiple different schemes, and that could be great for a Sacramento team that really doesn't have. They have De'Aaron Fox, they have Domantas Sabonis, but outside of that, I mean, they don't really have a great structure as to what their plan is. I think Jabari Smith Jr. is going to fit into any plan that they have, and offensively, I mean, they have the creators. They have De'Aaron Fox. They have Domantas Sabonis. Jabari's not going to enter a situation where he's going to be forced to have to be a creator because that's just not who he is at this point. He's not going to be forced to have to constantly pressure the rim because Fox and Sabonis are taking that load off of him. And what he would have to do is fit into his role of being that off-ball wing who uses his tremendous shot making in order to punish the advantage that De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis created for him. So, I mean, I think this fit is tremendous. You have a guy who can offset some of the defensive weaknesses that Sacramento has. On top of that, he can punish one-on-one coverage, and he has an unblockable shot, and I think that's going to be absolutely fantastic for them to have. So, yeah, I have the Kings selecting Jabari Smith Jr. with the 4th overall pick.
Yeah, no, that would for sure work out really well for them. At 5, to the Detroit Pistons. It's actually a tough one. I kind of went through 3-4 guys for this pick. But you know what? Again, this is a pick that I don't really know if it's really going to happen in real life. But honestly, I'm kind of a big fan of it because I think this guy can definitely return top 5 value, and that's going to be Jalen Duren, the big man out of Memphis. And yeah, I know the Pistons. They have Isaiah Stewart. They have Marvin Bagley, and that's kind of their 2 bigs right now. But with the upside that Jalen Duren provides and like the seamless fit with Cade Cunningham, I think it's honestly worth it to draft him at number 5 because like this guy Jalen Duren is going to be a incredibly great rim protector. I don't think he's necessarily on Chet's level, but he's like next tier down. He's going to provide a lot of rim deterrence, a lot of shot blocking ability. He's like the youngest player in the class, and he's more than just like a run and dunk big. Like James Wiseman was picked in the top 5 for like in fact they went to the same college, even though obviously Wiseman didn't play very many games at Memphis. But honestly, I think Jalen Duren's he's a better prospect than James Wiseman. And I know it's easy to say in hindsight, but even if you look at like the film from them, it's Jalen Duren's better because he not only does he have like the incredibly great upside and the fact that he's so young, youngest player in the class. He's a player with just like a ton of upside in terms of his like athletic and physical profile. But like he also provides value in that he can score a little bit in the post. Like you said, his defensive presence is great. He can pass honestly, and then he honestly has the upside to shoot a little. Like his shooting is not going to be anything special, but it's going to be, I think, good enough to potentially, warrant this pick. So the fit with him and Cade Cunningham makes a lot of sense in my opinion. So I'm going to go Jalen Duren at number 5. Pacers are up next.
Yeah, so with the 6th overall pick for the Indiana Pacers, this is a weird pick because the Pacers have multiple different directions that they could go, and they have a lot of needs at a lot of different spots. But I'm going to take the best gamble, let's say, at this pick, and I'm going to go with Johnny Davis at number 6. I mean, they already have their backcourt of the future, but I'm not really sold on Duarte being a franchise cornerstone or a building block. I think that he's more of a complementary piece. But adding Johnny Davis to a backcourt that already features Tyrese Halliburton is absolutely fantastic because what does Tyrese Halliburton not do? He doesn't pressure the rim at a high level. What does Johnny Davis do? He pressures the rim at a high level. What is Tyrese Halliburton really good at? He's a really good shot maker. Johnny Davis is a really good shot maker as well, but he's not as prolific from 3 as Tyrese Halliburton is. And I think that their skill sets complement each other so well. And I think you could add Johnny Davis, who's a really good slasher, to that backcourt in Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton. And I think that if you're Indiana and you're stuck in that small market and you're looking for the best outcome, the highest level outcome possible, you go with Johnny Davis at the 6th overall pick.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. All right, so I got the 7th pick, Portland Trailblazers. This is an interesting one. You have, upside bets in Shaden Sharp, Benedict Mathurin, and honestly, this is kind of where I had Johnny Davis penciled in this little like sample mock draft that I just wrote down on a piece of paper. So I got to kind of divert from that. But I'm going to go with AJ Griffin, and he's a player that I guess you could say I'm really high on, considering just relative to where the expectations kind of are with AJ Griffin right now. It's not all that high just because of his injury history, and that makes a lot of sense. But from a talent perspective, I view AJ Griffin as the top 5, top 6 in this class. So taking him at 7 is really no problem for me. And he's just a great combination of like substance in terms of like, he's just a really like high floor, but also high ceiling player because you're getting great 3-point shooting because he did that in his freshman year at Duke. He's advertised as that. In fact, going into Duke, he was kind of advertised as this like Jimmy Butler kind of player, but he didn't really turn into that at all when he was actually playing. I guess in high school, he kind of looked like him and maybe his body type, but again, like his 3-point shooting was elite, arguably one of the best. It might be the best in the class, and just in terms of spot ups in the corner, on the wing, and at the top of the key. He was elite at that, but he also has like the upside to like a lot of shot creation upside from like a 3-level scoring perspective. He can do that. His defense is pretty inconsistent. Sometimes he's kind of advertised to be a really good defender, hence the Jimmy Butler comp, but just the application of his defensive traits didn't really work out in his freshman season. So again, there's something there that maybe you could develop him into a neutral or positive defender, but at least from a scouting perspective, it doesn't really look that great right now. But I think it's still warranted because of what he has just from an upside on offense perspective. His passing doesn't really bring anything there, but I think he just works as like a high floor but also high ceiling wing that the Blazers should definitely take a look at number 7.
So at number 8, the New Orleans Pelicans are picking courtesy of the pick they acquired in the Anthony Davis trade from the Los Angeles Lakers. And at this pick, I think this is where Keegan Murray's slide kind of ends for us. I think that Keegan Murray is going to provide really good connective play. for the New Orleans Pelicans, both as a shooter and then on defensively, he could provide value on the wings. And I think that, New Orleans is in a spot where they need a point guard. They really do. But I mean, there's not someone I'm very comfortable taking at this number 8 selection. So you're probably going to go with best value that you could get out of this pick, someone who could help you contribute right now, because all you really need around Zion Williamson is guys who could space the floor and then let him cook in the paint. And I think that, Duran would have been my pick here to play alongside Zion, but since he's not available, I'm going to go with Keegan Murray, best value pick right here.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Keegan Murray, 8 to the New Orleans Pelicans. Spurs. Spurs are up at 9, and I believe Pranav, the way you wanted this draft to go is I'll have back-to-back picks here.
Yeah,
at 9
you'll
and
have
10,
back.
correct?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Since I am a Wizards fan, so it's cool to pick for my team. But starting off with the Spurs at number 9, this is a team that I think like the draft community on Twitter and even like just people in the media agree. There's kind of a consensus on like this could go literally any direction. Like I don't really know what the Spurs are looking at. So I guess it makes sense to go with best player available. And in this case, I've been doing a bad job of marking down these prospects here on my little list next to me, but Shaedon Sharpe is available, correct? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm going to draft Shaedon Sharpe to 9 to the Spurs because like it kind of just doesn't make any sense for the Spurs not to go with an upside play like Shaedon Sharpe because they're just kind of – the Spurs are a team that's literally like stuck because they're not bad enough to get like a – franchise-altering player inside the top 3. They just haven't had that good of lottery odds. But they're certainly not good enough to be like a threat in the playoffs. Like they've been, a fringe play-in team the past couple of years. And that's just been the ceiling for them. So at 9, you have a chance to get a – am I going to say Shaedon Sharpe's going to be franchise-altering? I mean, maybe there's like a slim chance. There's probably a pretty slim chance.
I don't see it
possible. So I don't see why the Spurs should not go with a player like that. It doesn't at this point. It doesn't really make much sense for them not to because they don't really have like they're not like a really good role player away from elevating their team status in terms of just their hierarchy of the NBA landscape. They are a huge upside play away from doing that, and Shaedon Sharpe is exactly that. So take Shaedon Sharpe at 9. If you can develop him. Then potentially you have, a franchise cornerstone piece. And Shaedon Sharpe is a player that, his vertical athleticism is amazing. His vertical leap is said to be one of the greatest in league history, potentially, for a prospect. Not really sure if that's true or not, but, I mean, when you watch his high school stuff, yeah, it certainly shows out. He has a lot of shot creation upside. He can probably be a pretty good defender. Again, he has the tools to be a really good defender. So, again, tools are there in terms of shot creating potential on both sides, offense and defense. He can certainly do that. And again, because of his athleticism, especially vertically, he can be a really good play finisher. And if he can develop really good ball movement in terms of his off the ball skills, which we don't really know if that's really developed or not, just because, again, he played in high school. So it's like, who really knows? But take Shaedon Sharpe at 9. I think that makes sense for the Spurs. And then at 10 for my Washington Wizards, I'm going to go with the player that I don't really think they're going to draft, but I would really love for them to draft, and that's Ty Washington, point guard out of Kentucky. It seems like, the draft community is kind of lowered on Ty Washington, but I really haven't. I still view him firmly as a top 15 player, or, close to the top 10, and so it makes sense that they draft him here. I think he provides a really good – again, he's a Kentucky guy, so he provides like a really good blend of passing. Like he had in a game where he literally had, I believe, 18 assists this year at Kentucky, which is just wild. But he can really pass the ball. He wasn't really in that situation at Kentucky. We see routinely with Kentucky prospects and, John Calipari's system that they have a skill that's really not shown at a very high level, but really pops at the NBA level. And Ty Washington, I think that's going to be his passing, but he's really good off the dribble shot maker in terms of his mid-range scoring ability. He is a good catch and shoot 3-point shooter. Is not really there. His pull-up shooting from 3 isn't really there, but it could be, again, because he has shown the range, at least, in a catch and shoot standpoint, and he's shown flashes in the mid-range. So, again, that upside is certainly there. And I think it's honestly time for the Wizards to draft a guard. Like, they don't have enough guards on the roster. Bradley Beal shouldn't be your only, quality guard on the team. And so I think it makes sense to draft a guy who can play the point guard for the future in Ty.
Yeah. So with that being said, with the 11th overall pick with the New York Knicks, I thought about going a couple different angles at this pick, but what I'm going to ultimately decide on is I think that I would go with Benedict Mathurin at this pick, number 11 to the New York Knicks. Um, RJ Barrett, I've loved his improvements coming into the league as a slasher and as a passer. And I think that Matherin, if he ever fixes his handle, I mean, his ceiling could be one of the highest in this class. But even if he doesn't, I mean, he's a really good off ball scorer next to RJ Barrett in that backcourt. He's a good shooter. He's really athletic and he gets to the rim. He's a really good off ball player overall, whether that's cutting or whether that's coming off pin downs and receiving the ball in order to shoot. I mean, he does a lot of things really well, and I do think that he has a really solid defensive upside as well on the other end. So, I mean, I think that Benedict Mathurin, you're kind of going. You're not going to get boom or bust. I'm not going to say that, but you're going to get a really good player, but you have the possibility of getting a potential star at this pick. And I think that's what the New York Knicks have to do, maximize on that value. So, yeah, I think that they should go with Benedict Mathurin at number 11. Yeah. Oh,
Then,
I
yeah,
have the
you have
number,
another pick because you want
and
to
I have
draft
the number
12 for the
12.
Thunder.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
12th pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And again, there are multiple angles that they could go. They selected Paulo Banchero in this mock draft. And so to complement Paulo in the front court, I could see Paulo playing a lot of small ball five in his first year. Or the player that I'm going to draft right now could play a lot of small ball five. And I'm going to go with Tari Eason out of LSU. Tari, I mean, compared to a guy I also considered and Jeremy Socon, Tari Eason, I think, provides a little bit more offensively as a scorer. And I mean, defensively, he's absolutely incredible, plays the passing lanes really well, provides great help. And I think next to Paulo, who's probably going to carry a large offensive load and might see similar defensive struggles like he did at Duke, having a guy like Tari Easton being that help defender is going to be absolutely excellent for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I think that you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a guy who can provide good scoring punch offensively, while defensively he can mask a lot of what Paulo. I'm not going to say is deficient in, but won't be as incredible in year one. So yeah, I'm going to go with Tari Eason at number 12.
Okay, Tari Eason in the lottery. Honestly, he was a prospect that I was kind of looking at down for a potential team like the Bulls at 18. I think that's might be where he goes in real life, but for some reason teams are like oddly lower on him than they should be. But yeah, Tari Eason 12. So 13, I guess technically, yeah, since I'm doing odds, I have both Hornets picks at 13 and 15. And obviously, it's no secret that the Hornets need a big. But because the Cavs are drafting, I mean, unless Pranav, you want to shaft me by drafting a big to the Cavs at 14, even though they have a ton of bigs. You know what? If you do it, props to you. But I'm gonna not draft a big at 13, and I'm gonna go with. I'm actually going to go Jeremy Sohan. The player I was looking at was Malachi Branham because I thought Sohan might go to 12 to the Thunder. But because it was really between Malachi Branham out of Ohio State and Jeremy Sohan out of Baylor. I'm going to go with Sohan. I think the Hornets, obviously, like I said, they need a big, but they could also use like a defense. Like their defense is bad. Like the Hornets defense is pretty stinky. And so why not draft a guy in Sohan who I think honestly may have the potential to be like an all NBA caliber defender. I think he's going to take people surprise, kind of like how Herb Jones did. Not to Herb Jones' level, because again, like maybe if Jeremy Sohan stayed in the college game for like 4 years, like Herb Jones did, maybe he could have come in as polished defensively as Herb Jones. But it's going to be kind of just like a miniature version of what Herb was doing as a rookie last year. I think that's the kind of impact that Jeremy Sohan can have. His off-ball defense is honestly terrific. Like at the rim, he's really good at just staying vertical. I don't really think he can actually switch 1 through 5, but probably 1 through 4. Like he can legitimately guard really twitchy and athletic guards. Maybe some with like, again, it's not going to be able to guard like the best of the best point guards, like a Kyrie or like a Dame or like Steph Curry, but the majority of point guards, I would say he'll be able to guard at the NBA level. In his future, certainly big shooting guards and wings, and even like more low post forwards. Again, big men. he probably won't be able to guard like centers like in the post straight up, but yeah, Jeremy Sohan makes a lot of sense because of his defense. Offensively, it's definitely a work in progress. His jump shot, especially at the free throw line, was extremely ugly for the first half of the season, but he's made a lot of mechanical changes, so I think offensively that game will certainly be good enough to again warrant. Honestly, I just think overall he reminds me a lot of Herb Jones, in my opinion. So 13, I'm going to go with Jeremy Sohan.
So that leaves us with the last lottery pick made by the Cleveland Cavaliers. And this is going to be kind of a surprise pick that I'm going to make here, but I'm going to take Jalen Williams. Last season, after Ricky Rubio went down and they traded him to the Indiana Pacers, where he probably eventually didn't play a game, the Cavs were really missing that bench playmaking that Rubio brought. And I think that Jalen Williams can fill that role perfectly for them, give them a nice connected passer who has a really good pick and roll touch, who could be a great pick and roll partner with Evan Mobley or Jared Allen in second units when Darius Garland isn't on the floor, or when Darius Garland is on the floor. I think that he showed massive improvements when it came to his shooting touch throughout the season. And I think that defensively, he has solid upside as well on that end. So I think that Jalen Williams, although he's not the highest upside guy that could be picked here, I did consider Jalen Hardy out of G League Ignite as well if they do lose Colin Sexton. But since I am the GM in this scenario, I'm re-signing Colin Sexton, bringing him back because
Nice.
that guy is an incredible scorer, and I think that he gets a lot of bad faith narrative sent his way. I think that they re-sign Colin Sexton in this scenario, and they bring Jalen Williams to kind of be that bench guard who could lead the second unit really well and can lead the offense without Darius Garland or Colin Sexton on the floor. And I think that his pick and roll passing and his touch in general is going to be incredible, especially for the two bigs that they have. So I'm going to go with Jalen Williams, kind of a safer pick at 14, but that's the direction I think the Cavs are going to go in order to continue to push for the playoffs next season.
Mm-hmm. All right, so 15, I'm going to go with Mark Williams for the Charlotte Hornets. Again, like I said, 13, they could go Mark Williams at 13, but like since the Cavs of all teams who have a ton of big men, like there's no shot they're going to draft Mark Williams in like real life. It's just not going to happen at 14. So they can afford to take someone at 13, like a wing or a guard, and then take the big man and Mark Williams at 15. And so that's what I'll have them doing here. Again, Mark Williams is going to provide just a lot of, like classic big man traits, kind of like a Clint Capella kind of big. That's pretty much what he is. He's not really going to be able to shoot it all, but again, he's going to be really good at running the floor in the pick and roll, being a roll man, finishing at the rim, super athletic, blocking shots on defense. He's going to be doing all those little things on both ends. That's just what the Hornets need. Like they need someone who can, play in the pick and roll with LaMelo Ball. They need a defensive presence. And so getting Sohan and Mark Williams, yeah, their defense is certainly going to be elevated for the future. So Mark Williams is a player that maybe on a big board I'm not as high on, and again, this is what would you do mock draft, or what would I do in this case? But I just think the fit is like so perfect and the need is like huge that it makes a lot of sense. Mark Williams would help the Hornets out. So I'm willing for them to reach a few spots for the sake of this pick.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you select Malachi Branham in this mock draft yet?
No, I drafted Sohan.
You drafted Sohan
It was either him or Branham for 13, but I drafted Sohan.
So at 16, I'm not going to select Branham. I'm going to select his teammate EJ Little to the Atlanta Hawks. Now, in real life, I think that this pick is going to be traded along with John Collins John Collins, and this pick is going to be traded in a massive move. Possibly, I don't know. But I think that the Atlanta Hawks should select EJ Little here. Little is a really good defender. He can play the wings really well, kind of like what they expected out of DeAndre Hunter, kind of playing that similar role on the wings. And then offensively, he provides really good shooting value. I mean, this past season, he shot 37% from three on about 4 attempts a game. And he provides really good scoring punch as well, just a two-way wing. And I think that could provide a lot of value for an Atlanta team that kind of declined in every area outside of Trae Young. I mean, their offense wasn't as prolific. Their defense wasn't as prolific. And maybe they changed that by acquiring Rudy Gobert, but there's not a particular big that I love defensively at the spot for Atlanta. So I'm going to go with a guy that offers a lot of value. And I'm going to go with EJ Little at this pick.
Okay. So 17 Houston Rockets, definitely some potential picks. Like Usman Jiang was kind of the guy I was considering, but you know what? I have like just a list of guys that I think are just better prospects. So I'm gonna go with one that we've kind of debated over with 2 picks, and that's gonna be Malachi Branham. I think this is the perfect time to take him, just because he's again another player like a AJ Griffin in that he has like a pretty high floor. You know what you're getting because again at Ohio State in his freshman year, he really came on in that second half of the season. Was a great 3-point shooter, shot like 45% in terms of catch and shoot threes. And so like when they're open, he's gonna knock them down at like nearly half of his like open threes in the NBA. So that's valuable. He was really good mid-range scorer off the dribble. Like he can score and with a screen and in the pick and roll. He's not really too much of a passer, but again, he has like a mid-range floater he can go to. A good finisher at the rim. Like statistically, there was hardly that many flaws to pick out in terms of his scoring skill set. That is, and then defensively, he was doing some really good things too. Like he could match up against twos and threes in college. So I think he'll have a bit of versatility there. His on-ball defense will be pretty solid. So again, like a 3-and-D wing creator is going to be what he is, and because he has like can be like that creator on offense, he has like the upside to do that. I think it makes sense for a team like Houston, even with a long-term projection. I still think he fits into so many systems and he's like I have him 12 on a big board, at least this rough big board. So it's like at 17, you're just getting good value there. So I'm going to take Malachi Branham for the Rockets.
So at number 18 with the Chicago Bulls. Now, in real life, I think that they might make a move for Rudy Gobert, but since we're not doing that in this mock draft, I'm going to assume that they have Vucevic on this roster. And I'm going to go with John Butler out of Florida State, a guy who can hit open threes offensively when it's required of him, and then a guy who could also be really good help defender next to Nikola Vucevic, who isn't a really good defender. And I think that his value on that end of the court is going to be magnified in Chicago, where they have really elite defenders everywhere, but on the inside. I mean, DeMar and Zach are an elite defenders, but they have Lonzo, AC, Patrick Williams is a really good defender when he comes back. And I think that adding John Butler to the mix in their rotations can provide them some nasty lineups defensively. I mean, running Lonzo, AC, Pat Will, John Butler, and then you have an offensive engine like DeRozan or a Zach LaVine on the court at all times. I think that you could do some really nice things on that end. So yeah, I'm going to go with John Butler at this pick. Perfect fit for Chicago and what they require on the defensive end.
All right, I like it. All right, so 19 Minnesota Timberwolves. This is a player who most definitely isn't going to be available at 19, but I'm going to pull the trigger on it since he is, and that's Dyson Daniels. If he's somehow, again, he's a player that like he's going to be in the top 10. I think that's pretty much solidified and guaranteed at this point. Not
Probably
really sure
well
where in the
into
top 10.
probably well into the top 10.
Right,
so.
honestly. I mean, at the latest mock
I
draft,
think in
had
real
him
life he's going to
here's
go
the
to New
website.
Orleans, but yeah.
Honestly, yeah. Even Indiana, I could see at like 6. But again, for the sake, 19, what he could bring to the Timberwolves. I mean, heck, he'd be an excellent player just because he has pretty much all like the skills you want in terms of like this Lonzo Ball, Derek White kind of player. His shooting isn't really there, but he kind of brings everything else. Like he has incredible size at like 6'6", 6'7". Really good basketball IQ. Like he's a really good passer, the pick and roll, connecting in terms of extra passing. So he can be like a really good connector on offense. He has a really good mid-range floater. That's kind of like his main trait as a scorer. Again, he's not really that great in terms of his slashing and finishing ability. His three-point shooting isn't all that good, but he can get into the mid-range and finish with a nice right-handed floater. That's something that he's really great at, and that's a valuable skill because mid-range floater is one of the best things that a young guard can have in their arsenal. So Dyson Daniels has that. His defense is great. He's going to be able to be just an excellent on-ball defender really right away in year one. Again, he was doing this in the G League, so it's absolutely going to translate. And so, I mean, that would be a great fit with the Timberwolves. But he's probably going to go in the lottery. So.
And at 20, I think that the Spurs are going to make the highest value pick, highest upside pick. They're going to go with Usman Dieng. Usman Dieng. I don't know how to say the last name, but Usman Dieng.
I'm pretty sure it's Usman Jang or
yeah,
Dieng.
yeah. Out of the New Zealand Breakers, I think that throughout the season, his shot making really impressed me. And then pretty much offensively, his entire arsenal is really impressive. I mean, he's a really good ball handler at that size at 6'10". I mean, the league is always looking for jumbo creators, and I think Usman provides a lot of that. And his shot making is really good, I think. And I mean, he makes great reads all the time. I mean, he's a really good passer, and I think that I think in the Spurs developmental system that he could really reach that ceiling, possibly get better defensively, and really be that offensive hub for them. So yeah, I think that they're going to go with the highest value pick here, take Usman Jang, and go see the results play out. Possibly, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
All right. Yeah, 21 to the Nuggets. A couple different options. The two guys that I'm really considering right now are Blake Wesley out of Notre Dame and Kendall Brown, who's also out of Baylor. And in real life, I think Kendall Brown is probably more likely to pick, but I think Blake Wesley's just a better player. Like, I have him in the tier above, like as a fringe lottery guy, so it makes sense to go with Blake Wesley. I think Blake Wesley, he creates a lot of advantages as like a two guard slash a wing. He's a young player, so he has plenty of upside, and like he's just going to be a guy who is going to fit because he can cut off ball really well. He's really athletic, so it's like he's going to be able to fit as a nice two guard slash wing next to Nikola Jokic in their offense. His attacking closeouts is going to be deadly because like his first step and his burst are like some of the best in this class, and that's how he's able to get downhill and create pressure at the rim. So working off of Jokic and the rest of their offense, assuming they can get their guys healthy and Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., it's just going to be another really good complementary piece. And he has the upside to do a lot of other stuff. So Blake Wesley at 21 to the Nuggets.
And at 22 to the Memphis Grizzlies, I think that this is where Jaden Hardy's slide really ends. I think that, you're the Memphis Grizzlies. You're pretty much complete at every area of your roster. At this point, what do you go for? You go for the best gamble, pretty much. And your developmental staff is really good. You trust your developmental staff. And I think that that's what they're going to do. And they're going to take Jaden Hardy right here. I think that Hardy's scoring potential is through the roof. I think that he's a better shooter than his numbers indicate from all areas of the court. And I think that, in a situation in Memphis where he's not burdened with such an on ball load, I mean, I think that he could play off of John Morant, be that two guard, sliding in next to Desmond Bane as well. And I think that his defense will continue to improve in that situation where he's not burdened with doing so much offensively. And I think that they can really get the best out of him in that situation. And he could be that second ball handler next to John Morant, a guy that, you can go down, you can like rely on to create their own shot down the stretch. So I'm going to go with Jaden Hardy here. I think that he's the best value pick. I think that I think Memphis is in a position where they can gamble for him and they could really develop him well, like they've done over the years with guys like Zaire Williams, like they're doing right now. And I think that that's what they're going to do. They're going to take Jaden Hardy at 22.
All right, 23 to the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to draft a player who probably won't be here for them. He's just not going to be available because I think he'll go maybe lottery, definitely in the top 20. Ochai Agbaji out of Kansas. I think at 23, I mean, man, if he actually slid to 23, this would be like perfect because I think the Sixers should just draft like the best available shooting guard or small forward wing kind of guy who is just a really good three-point shooter and plays solid defense. And that's pretty much what Ochai Agbaji does. And because of that, he's probably going to go higher, as I said before. But, man, if he went to the Sixers, that would be perfect because that's just what they need more of. Like, they have too many guys who kind of need the ball in their hands off their bench. And they need more guys who can, like, move well without the ball, cut to the basket really well on all different areas of the court, and lights out shooters. That's exactly what Agbaji is. He would be a plus pick at 23. I think his value is a little overrated if you're drafting him like really close to the top 10, but at this point in the draft, it's like perfect. So he'd be, like I said, a plus pick for a team that definitely needs like a skill set that he provides.
Yeah, and at number 24 for the Milwaukee Bucks, I have them taking the kid who went to Milwaukee for college. I think that they're going to take the gamble and select Patrick Baldwin Jr. Patrick Baldwin Jr. had kind of an underwhelming season at Milwaukee, Wisconsin this season. I mean, he wasn't as prolific shooting the ball as we thought he would be, but I still think that his shooting upside is pretty high. And I think that if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you're pretty much set in every area. I mean, you have the cornerstone in Giannis, you have the secondary creator in Middleton, and you have an elite point of defender who's a really good connective passer in Drew Holiday. I think you're pretty much set as far as that nucleus goes, and you have really good role players as well. Possibly you can look at bringing a guy like PJ Tucker back, who opted out of his deal in Miami. I think that adding a guy like Patrick Baldwin Jr., who won't be burdened with as much of an offensive load as he was in Milwaukee, and he will be in much better surroundings. I think that his shooting will be even better than it was. And I think that, what you saw out of him in high school, I mean, I think that's a better representation of what he could be. So yeah, I think that Milwaukee, you're in a position where you can take this risk if you find it as a risk. I think that PBJ is going to be a really good role player, and I think that they could take him right here. He could be a really good shooter for them.
So at 25, I'm going to ask you this. You picked the Spurs' second pick. Who was that draft pick again?
Oh, Usman Zhang.
Zhang? Okay. All right. Well, then that impacts who? All right. So they have Shaden Sharp then. In our mock draft, they have Shaden Sharp and Usman Zhang.
Yeah.
Are their two picks. This is a tough one, man. The Spurs, I could literally see them going anywhere. I'm going to go, they, drafted, I guess, a forward or a point forward in Jiang and a 2-guard in Sharp. So I'm actually going to say they draft the big, another big man to, kind of be their next guy next to Pirtle. That's going to be Ismail Kamagate out of France. Again, he's a foreign prospect, a big that's kind of seen by draft scouts right now and like the NBA community as or the draft community really as like a late first, early second guy. But he's someone that I could see the Spurs reach on just because, they Spurs tend to do pretty well with international prospects. They could probably use a big for the future. And so it's like he has a lot of, he's a really raw prospect. Offensively, he's probably just going to bring I kind of liken him to the center version of what Usman Garuba brought last year. And he was obviously a Houston Rocket right now. I think he's kind of like the center version of that. He's 7 foot, 7'1". Kamagate has the raw shot blocking skills. Is really good. I think is pretty mobile and agile for his size, and he provides really good play finishing. Obviously, he has a lob threat at the rim. Not too much else than that, but it's enough to work with for San Antonio in this spot. And I think the Spurs, they're kind of probably just going to be drafting for fit. And so I don't really love too many of the guys that I have above the board. I honestly like Kamagate. I have him as a first-round prospect, late first round, but he's there. And so I think the fit kind of outweighs maybe just a bit of a talent gap in terms of a few guys I have above him. I think it just makes sense here at 25 for the Spurs.
And I cannot believe that he's fallen into the laps of the Dallas Mavericks. But at number 26, I'm going to select Trevor Keels out of Duke. I mean, next to Luka Doncic, they had a top 10 defense this year, and I think that in that backcourt, he could provide really good point of attack defense. He has a really high motor, and then offensively, he could develop a skill set in Dallas where he'll just be in that complementary role, providing connected passing, developing his shot, being a good floor spacer, being a good play finisher. Kind of a lot of what he did at Duke for the Blue Devils this season. I think that he's going to fill that role perfectly in Dallas where they require that. So yeah, I'm going to go with Trevor Keels at 26 for the Dallas Mavericks.
All right, so 27 Heat. Wow, they have a lot of options here. I'm going to go Kennedy Chandler, who's a point guard out of Tennessee. And that's the guy I kind of had mocked in my latest draft, just written down because I think it makes a lot of sense for the Heat. He's just a really good mentoree for or a good young guard to mentor for Kyle Lowry. As Kyle Lowry kind of ages out of the NBA and we're seeing his decline, I think he could definitely be a mentor towards a guard like Kennedy Chandler. Chandler, I think he's one of the better passers in this class at the point guard position. Certainly, he can score to a good degree. His first 10 games, he was a great 3-point shooter. Kind of fell off the rest of the season. So maybe he could develop. The jury's still out on his 3-point shooting, but he could be good there. Had a great game against Purdue this year, where he had like one of the best games we've even seen from a prospect. Like he had like 35 points on like insane efficiencies. Second half was just incredible in that game. I really encourage anyone if Miami Heat fan, if you guys draft Kennedy Chandler, 100% go watch that game back, because he was just, he looked like a top 10 player in this class in that game. Again, it was just one game, but that's exactly like that's the high stuff you're getting from Kennedy Chandler. So I think he's a guard that would make a lot of sense for the Heat. And they're a team that they don't have really too many like true guards that, besides Kyle Lowry, that kind of do what he does. So he's the pick that I really like for them.
And at number 28, we have the defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors selecting here. They could pretty much do a lot of different things here. I mean, they're pretty complete everywhere, and then they're going to get James Wiseman back. They're going to have Kuminga in an elevated role. They're going to have Moody in an elevated role, and I think that kind of solves their rim pressure problems that they had this season. And so I think that they're going to lose some guys in free agency, and I think the most notable name that they could lose is Otto Porter Jr. And so to replace him, I'm going to go with Hugo Besson out of New Zealand. I mean, a guy who could shoot really well, a guy who could be a good connected passer. I think that, he provides similar skill set, not on the same level as Otto, obviously, but, a guy who could fill that void. I think Moody's going to fill that void, but as far as the roster spot goes, you want someone who could replicate that skill set, and I think that that's what they're going to do at this selection. So they're going to go with Hugo Besson out of New Zealand.
All right, so the last pick in the mock draft for me is going to be Memphis Grizzlies. And there's a couple players that I don't really expect them to be here. Kendall Brown, Marjon Beauchamp, probably going to be drafted way earlier, especially Beauchamp. He could be a lottery guy. But I kind of have him as like a late first, early second guy. That's why it's one of the reasons he hasn't gone this far. Dalen Terry is another wing. But you know what? I'm not going to go with any of those guys, even though they're certainly more likely picks. I'm going to go with a guy who is not going to – I don't think he's going to be in the first round. I'd be elated if he was, because I think Vince Williams out of VCU is the most underrated player in this class. I think I view him. He's viewed kind of as a mid-second guy, maybe early second, but I honestly think he's a certified first-round player. He's fantastic. Did a scouting report on him. I can't remember what month, but I did late season. I think it was March. So you go to the TWSN website. My March scouting report that I did, I believe I had him in March, even though VCU didn't make March Madness. That's when I watched his tape. And boy, he really impressed me. His defense is great. He just does a lot. I mean, he's an older prospect. That's why he's viewed as like such a late or mid to late second guy. Is because of his age. He's going to be 24 years old in his first year of the NBA. But again, he could have like a mini Herb Jones kind of impact. It doesn't really play like him, but like he can score. His passing out of the wing position is honestly great. Like he makes like high level passing reads as a wing. Really good 3-point shooter. Really good defender. So he's going to do just a lot of really good things well, and that makes perfect sense for a team like the Grizzlies. So Vince Williams, I think, is the most underrated player in the class, and I kind of just wanted to shout him out since this is what would we do mock draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with the last pick of the first round, this pick belongs to the Denver Nuggets after the Thunder traded it for a 2027 pick. Brilliant work by Presti. Shout out Presti. But at this pick, I'm gonna have the Nuggets. Who did they take with the first pick that we had? I think it was pick 21.
21st pick,
yeah.
Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I believe I drafted
Blake Wesley.
Oh yeah, it was Blake Wesley. Yeah, I drafted Notre Dame, Blake Wesley.
Yeah. So I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna double down on the defensive end, and I'm gonna go with Josh Minott out of Memphis. I mean, he has really good connected potential offensively. And I mean, Denver's offense is going to be set when they're probably going to have the best offense in the league next year when they get Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray back. But what he provides defensively, possibly being a secondary rim protector, is going to be absolutely incredible. He's also one of the younger players in this draft. He's 19, and I think that he could slide into that 4 spot. They lost to Michael Green in that trade. I think that he could slide into that 4 spot for the Denver Nuggets in some lineups and play alongside Nikola Jokic and really be that complement defensively for him. And offensively, he's going to have a really simplified role. So I'm going to go with John out of Memphis.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our mock draft. We do the entire first round.
This is not going to come true, by the way.
No, it's not. And that's why we wanted to kind of do it in video form, because it's just it's kind of fun to more like discuss in a video like this what would we do mock draft instead of like what we think will happen.
Well, if I had to ask you a question, what would your biggest surprise be from what we did in the mock? Like, what kind of surprised you out of our results?
I mean, I'd say there's just a lot of players that are maybe just the difference in our opinions versus like so many players that are probably going to go way higher, like Ochai Agbaji, Marjan Beauchamp.
Yeah, I was surprised Marjan Beauchamp fell out of the first round.
Yeah, I am too. And honestly, he could have been. I could have easily picked him for the Grizzlies.
I could have picked him for the Warriors.
I just kind of I just wanted to draft. Vince Williams is like one of my favorite prospects. So I just wanted to draft him at 29. But yeah, it's just like there's plenty of guys that our opinions certainly differ from where their stock is, I guess.
Dyson Daniel is going to go top 10.
Yeah, Dyson Daniel is going to go top 10.
We took him in the lower end of the teens.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, like there's a guy like like Shaden Sharp.
We kind of took him out of projected range. Yeah.
So we probably took him in the draft range. Like Jalen Duren and AJ Griffin are two players that might we drafted pretty high, and they might not they could feasibly slip out of the top 10. It's a possibility. So it kind of goes both ways on that end. But to wrap up this video, thank you so much for watching this TWSN mock draft. For more content like this, you can subscribe to, of course, the TWSN YouTube channel. On the Ball Show every Thursday. We obviously have a bunch of other shows, Game Changers, TWSN shows, Strikes and Submissions, all different kinds of content on all different kinds of sports. And the TWSN website, I know for me, I'm going to be probably publishing a 2-round mock draft that'll come out probably the day of the draft on Thursday, so in a couple days. So be on the lookout for that and a bunch of other content from the both of us. But again, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.
Peace.